Hello everyone, welcome back to Analog IS current affair analysis for 23rd of February 2021, and in this video we'll be discussing this couple of issues. New paradigm in animal husbandry. This particular article is about the fund that has been announced in the economic stimulus package last year in May as a part of the Atmanirbhar package to come out of the economic slump that we are facing because of COVID. So, as a part of the revival of rural sector, especially, this fund called the Animal Husbandry Infrastructure Development Fund was created, and the fund that was allocated was 15,000 crores. So, if you take a look at animal husbandry or animal rearing as such, it's considered an associate business with agricultural activities in rural India, and it is a very integral component of Indian agriculture. Therefore, in rural sector, if we can actually develop infrastructure that can support animal husbandry activities, it will significantly augment our capacities to get more revenues out of animal husbandry. Now, what is the objective of this fund? Will it directly be given to build something? That is not the purpose of this fund. So you have to remember this for prelims exam. The purpose of this fund is not to directly put that money into infrastructure. Rather, what it will do is this money will be given to private sector as a loan. How much of it will be given? Up to 90% of the total cost, and there will be certain percentage of interest, right? In that, there will be 3% interest subvention as well. So what it will do is it will provide affordable finance to the private sector to build the infrastructure. It is empowering the private sector. And what is the incentive for private sector? It can access cheap loans and it can build an asset for itself at a very low interest. So it will become a sustainable model in the future for them as well. And the government will not be forced to spend money directly through itself. This is the basic funda of this fund. So what happens here is refinancing basically. Now, who are the eligible partners in this? Firstly, we have the farmer produce organizations, which are nothing but a sort of a company of all the small and marginal farmers who do not individually have a bargaining power. So they come together as a farmer produce organization and develop their bargaining capacity. Similarly, we have MSMEs, we have Section 8 companies. Now, whenever we're talking about Section 8 companies, as per Companies Act of 2013, what they actually mean is not for profit enterprises. So they are more like NGOs, but they are involved in social activities to ensure that inclusive society is a objective that they cherish. Similarly, this is not only available for these companies, even private companies can avail this facility to ensure that they are indulged in rural infrastructure business as well. Not just these people, even individual entrepreneurs who are interested in getting this done with only 10% margin money contribution by them can also take a loan from the scheduled commercial banks and participate in these activities. Now, what are the areas where we can mobilize these funds to build infrastructure? This article talks about that. So, dairy processing is the most urgent need where infrastructure development is needed. Milk has a very low shelf life, and as a result, they need chilling infrastructure. That is, they need huge freezers. Now, the requirement of the dairy sector is nearly rupees 20,000 crores according to the article writers' studies. This is only for chilling, but not the entire dairy infrastructure, which involves even milk processing and distribution. If even those are included, according to him, that is nearly 1.4 lakh crore worth of opportunity, which is untapped yet. So there is considerable increase in the productivity of the cattle also if we can mobilize this fund for improving the quality of animal feed. So nutritious food will be available for cattle, and they will automatically be more productive as they produce more and more amount of quality milk. So this has been designed to support establishment of animal feed plants also. So after dairy sector, animal feed plants is the second area where this investment can go into. The third segment is the poultry segment. India is the fourth largest meat producer, that is chicken producer, and second largest egg producer in the world. Given the fact that we have included egg in our midday meal scheme program, we will need significant improvements in our poultry sector as well. This includes maintaining hygiene and better infrastructure that will not breed chickens in a very congested place. So that is about the poultry sector. So all these activities together will have twofold benefit. One, it will lead to almost 30 lakh jobs creation, and secondly, it will lead to climate change adaptation initiative, because it is considered to be much more sustainable than moving towards industrialization. So because of all these benefits, the Animal Husbandry Infrastructure Development Fund is a very positive move for animal husbandry sector, which has social, economic, nutritional, and even environmental benefits as well. That is the gist of this article. The explosion of quota demands. Who wants what? Why in Karnataka? So you have to understand the context of this article. For that, you have to understand why was reservation actually envisaged in our constitution. Firstly, it was meant to be a tool for social equality and social mobilization. So this mobilization is not just socially but also financially. So in order to correct the historical injustice faced by backward castes in the society, we created this system. It provided a level playing field for backward classes as it was envisaged in the constitution originally. But time and again, to ensure adequate representation of the backward classes in the services under the state, we have included or increased reservation, and as a part of that, we have accepted the Mandal Commission recommendation to give 27% of the reservation for OBCs. It is in this context we have to understand two different trends. Politically, there are a few castes in every state which are so important for electoral gains for political parties. Those caste groups are holding the governments accountable or at ransom sometimes for getting these OBC benefits. But being considered backward is a matter of social status in our society. Yet, despite this fact, why is a significant chunk of our population demanding this reservation? We have to understand this phenomena. If we have to take a look at the trend in even developed states, which are relatively economically developed, I mean, let us take the case of Haryana, let us take the case of Gujarat, Maharashtra. In spite of their economies being relatively better, there have been worrying trends because certain groups, caste groups, have been demanding this reservation. The reason is there is acute agrarian distress. Secondly, the quality of jobs that are created are not satisfactory for the population in those states, or the wage growth is very stagnant, and therefore they want a better quality of life, and they believe that government jobs can give them that opportunity. So they have been agitating time and again for including their caste in OBCs. Thirdly, there is a severe distortion in development trajectory. What do I mean by this? Certain castes have progressed forward, but there are certain castes which still face the stigma. Because of this, there is a relative deprivation and a feeling that they are socially alienated from that particular society. And in order to change that, they believe that accessing jobs that can give them that social status, that is government jobs, will improve their situation. That is also one more reason. So in Karnataka, there is a particular group of castes which are together called the Panchamashali Lingayats, which are demanding for this reservation. If we take a look at the different categories of reservation that is available in Karnataka, it is broadly categorized under these heads: category 1, 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B, SCs, and STs. So, what are the different percentages allotted to these particular categories? For category 1, it is 4%, and if you take a look at category 2, it is 15%, and 2B is 4%, 4% for 3A, 3B. As you can see, this is the various allocations percentage of different castes. Now, what is the problem here? There is a community called the Lingayat community in Karnataka. So this Lingayat community broadly has two different categories of people. One is the Panchamashali Lingayat that we're talking about, and the other one is the Veerashaiva sect, who are followers of Basavanna. So both these castes are demanding that they be included in this 2A category where there is 15% reservation. Given the fact that these communities form a significant chunk of the vote bank and they are a very important vote bank in Karnataka, the state government is in a fix as to how to handle this issue. Apart from this, not only the OBC problem, there is issue with the ST quota as well. So right now, the existing quota is 3%. There are demands that this quota should be increased to 7.5% by certain communities like Valmiki Nayaks. Also, certain castes like Kurubas are demanding that they are left out and they want to be included in this ST category. So these are the various demands that are present in Karnataka at this moment. What is the likely impact if all these demands are accepted? Can the state government actually do that? As a matter of fact, the state government can clear this and pass the proposal to the central government, which has the final approving authority. But here there is a caveat: the state must determine the backwardness of each of these communities. The parameters should be fulfilled. Only then they can pass the proposal to the central government. But the impact that we have to understand here is when each of these communities are included in the already crowded OBC list. Say, for example, there are some X number of castes in this particular OBC category. Now, if we include a caste which has a significant chunk of population, this Lingayat community almost has 15 to 20% of the state's population. Now, including this many number of people in the existing category of caste will actually render the reservation issue pointless, because these communities were historically proven to be facing injustice. Now it is here the Rohini Commission comes into the picture, because Rohini Commission has suggested that we have to go forward for subcategorization of backward classes so that different communities get equal representation amongst the OBCs. Now there are also talks that this will lead to the breach of the 50% threshold that the government has time and again reinforced through the 1992 Indira Sawhney case. Except in Tamil Nadu, where we have 69% of reservation, and this is because these laws were passed before the 9th schedule came into existence. So the impact is these socially significant groups which have a significant influence over electoral politics and are also not that socially backward will be gaining this advantage of OBC reservation. It will alter the state of society in a particular state, in this case Karnataka, and it will actually see that the point of having this affirmative action will be guided not by values of reservation but by electoral politics, which is not a healthy trend. That is the gist of this article.